Oh, I think we must be live. I hope everybody can hear me. Welcome, everybody. Get Yom Tov. It's Yud Tes Kislev, 19th of Kislev. We call that a Yom Tov. Okay, let's summarize what Yud Tes Kislev is. So, the Rabbi Shneur Zalman of Liadi was released from prison on the 19th of Kislev in the year, what year would that be? 1799. And he was arrested on charges of treason. It was very dangerous because it was a czarist government that was attempting to have complete control over everything that was going on in the entire country. Total, absolute monarchy. And most of the Jews of Europe were under the rule of the Tsar. The rest was under the Prussian government, and the others under Austria-Hungary. That was most of the Jews. And if Rabbi Shneur Zalman had been found guilty of these charges, what would have happened is that the entire Hasidic movement throughout Russia, and it would follow in the other empires as well, because they would do the same thing, would be outlawed. And there wouldn't be any Hasidic movement anyway. That would be the end of it. So it was a very dangerous arrest, not just for the personal safety of Rabbi Shneur Zalman, but of the Hasidic movement and of Jews throughout all of Europe. When he was released, that was a great celebration. It's not just a personal celebration, but a celebration for all of Hasidim and all of Jews. While he was in prison, he was concerned, why is this happening to me? And the story is told, well, he told a story that he was visited while he was there in his cell by his teacher, the Maggid of Mizrich, Rabbi Dov Ber of Mizrich, and the Baal Shem Tov. Of course, this was long after the passing of the Maggid of Mizrich, and he had never met the Baal Shem Tov. Well, he met him when he was 3 years old. He didn't know who he was meeting. But they came from Gan Eden, from the Garden of Eden. They came in bodies to his cell. And he asked them, why am I here? What did I do? And they said, well, you were spreading these well springs, the inner Torah. You were spreading them so fast and so far, so to such a degree that there was an accusation above that you can't spread these things this fast. The inner Torah has to be kept secret. If it's going to be spread out, it can't be spread so fast. And he was spreading it because this is a preparation for the times of Mashiach, that these teachings have to be spread out. So he asked them, should I stop doing this? Should I slow down? And they said, no, you're going to be released from here. And once you were released, then you'll be able to spread them even to an even greater degree. In other words, the decree is over. It will be judged on your side that you were right, and what you're doing is right, and you'll be able to spread these teachings much, much further than you did before, which is what happened as soon as he got out from prison. He started spreading, teaching with much greater depth, much greater length, much greater, far beyond what had happened before. And so really, there's the celebration day for the spreading of Hasidic teachings throughout the world from that point on. So what we're going to try to understand today is, well, what is Hasidus? How does it work? And what exactly happened back then? And most important, we're interested in Hasidus as a teaching that transforms the world. That's why I titled it this Transforming the World. Hasidus is not just about I get some sort of enlightenment. I'm able to see things in a different way personally that I saw before, or simply that I'm able to come to love and awe of God. Well, yes, that's what the Baal Shem Tov taught. The Baal Shem Tov taught that it was within the capacity of each one of us to serve God out of love, awe, and joy with happiness. Before that, people thought, oh, that's just for certain tzaddikim. Some people are able to have love, but the typical person can't have that. The Baal Shem Tov said, no, that's within capacity of each one of us. And then along came a student of his student, Rabbi Shneur Zalman Viliadi from Lithuania. They called him the Litvak. And he said, okay, when you're in the presence of the Baal Shem Tov, you're able to feel love and awe and joy. You're able to feel that. When you're in the presence of one of his students, you're able to feel that. But what the Baal Shem Tov really meant is that you should be able to achieve this on your own. So I'm going to provide teachings. I'm going to compose a book called Sefer Tanya. He called it Sefer Shel Beinanim, which means you would translate as that the book for the everyman, for every person, and how to achieve, with the help of a tzaddik, but really on your own, this love and awe and joy in serving God. But he went further than that. He says it's not just your own personal achievement. You're actually changing the world. You're transforming the world this way. And that's based on a very important teaching of the Arizal, Rabbi Yitzhak Luria. And all the Hasidic movement is based on, very much founded on the teachings of the Arizal. And much of the way we think today as Jews is really based on the Arizal, even though the Arizal was a great Kabbalist, but it had great influence on how people think, Jews and non-Jews as well. The Arizal, Rabbi Yitzhak Luria, spoke about how human beings are capable of fixing up. They call it rectifying, repairing, but it doesn't really mean that. It means fixing up, making, improving, taking the pieces of a shattered world and putting them back together to make it into the ultimate world. It was a very empowering type of teaching. It's called tikkun, which means to fix up, not just to fix, but to fix up. And the way the Arizal described this, he was just discussing a passage in the Zohar and what it truly meant. And he's saying that when God created the world, we usually think of God creating a perfect world and us coming in and messing it up. He says it's really the other way around. When God created the world, he first created a world of tohu. Tohu, like it says in the beginning of Bereshis, Ba'aretz ha'isa tohu vavohu. This creation of God was first tohu. What's tohu? The world of tohu. It's usually translated as confusion, a world of chaos. The way the Arizal describes this is a world of tremendous light to the point that nothing can contain this light. The light is so great it can't be contained. So you have there, like you have in a standard world according to Kabbalah, there's 10 sfirot. There's Chochmah, Bina, Burson, there's wisdom, there's understanding, there's knowing, there's Chesed, Gvura, the kindness or effulgence, Gvura's might, all the 10 sfirot that make up a world, but they're unable to contain this tremendous light. There's no way he describes it. They can't contain this tremendous light. And so this world implodes upon itself, or explodes, which was what was intended, believe it or not. It was intended that this first world that's created should be destroyed. It's actually hinted to in a Medrash. It says that before God created the world, he built worlds and destroyed them, built worlds and destroyed them. It says, I don't like this world. I don't like this world. Destroyed. Well, obviously, that's intentional because he's the creator. He's omniscient. He knows what he's doing. When he's going about this world, creating this world, knowing this will self-destruct. That's the whole point. The point was that when this world self-destructs, it shatters, and the sparks, which basically means that there are the receptacles of this light, these 10 sfirot, they shatter and they retain some of the light. And the shatterings, the sparks that fall below and become another world. So you have a world where there are all these shattered sparks and they're all misplaced. It's describe something like if you took a book and you held this book up in the air and you threw it up in the air and all the letters of the book would scatter throughout the room. And now you tell somebody, okay, gather all the letters together and make a book out of it. So the letters scattered all over the room, they have no meaning to them. But they do. If you put them in the right order, again, they'll have meaning to them. Like a jigsaw puzzle, that type of thing. So there's then a world where there's the scattered pieces, and there's a sphere of chokhmah, of wisdom, and this wisdom puts everything back together, and you have a world of tikkun, where everything is fixed up, tikkun. And in this world of tikkun is a world of harmony, where all the pieces are working very nicely together. The light is nowhere near as intense. The harmony that's there doesn't allow for such intensity, but at least there's a harmony. That's a world of tikkun, and it's a godly, divine world. From this world, afterwards, the Rizal describes, comes another world, a world of creation, of Bria. And there again, the pieces are all scattered, but then again, they're fixed up again. And there's many levels of this world of Bria, of creation. Then there's a level of the world of Yetzirah, of formation. Then again, all the scattered pieces are there, and then they're fixed up again to some degree. And there's harmony there. And then many levels of that world of formation, and then you come to a world of Asiyah, our world of action. And in this world of action, the scattered pieces are all there, and everything that exists is an artifact of one of those sparks. And they're not fixed up. The human being is placed in this world, the Arizal says, is placed in this world, and the job of this human being is to put the pieces back together again. And that's what we're still doing. We're busy putting these pieces back together again. The human being does this, and particularly that we're given the Torah, and the Torah tells us how all the pieces, what we're supposed to do with each thing. That's how the Arizal describes it. Chassidus brings it a little closer to human reason, sort of more abstracting from the metaphor. Tells us what are these sparks, the sparks within you. And there's two different ways of describing what these sparks are. The sparks, we say, that's the koach hapoel shebenifrol, that's the active force that's causing whatever artifacts of this world to exist. So anything that you see in this world, whether it be just an object, a rock, a chair, the light switch behind me, or it could be a living organism, could be a spider, it could be an octopus, whatever, it could be me. Or it could be an event that's happening in the world, the light that's shining, or a day that's passing by, whatever event happens. Each of these things is an artifact of a godly force, a divine force. And if we would be able to see that divine force, we wouldn't see this. That's why I'm calling it an artifact. It's something like when you put a blue line next to a red line, you see a green line there, but there is really no green line. It's an artifact. So we can't see the divine force, so therefore we see physicality. But really everything is these divine forces, these sparks. Divine sparks. That's one way of describing it. Another way of describing it is that the divine spark of each thing is its true meaning. The words in Hebrew are hakavana halokis, the godly intent of this thing, the godly purpose and meaning of this. Like in that book that I was trying to, you throw all the letters up into the air. So each thing has its meaning. It has a meaning. Somewhere in the story, there's a meaning for this thing. But as they're all scattered, you can't find that meaning. So you just see scattered letters, or scattered words, and they don't seem to have any meaning to them. So our job is to find the meaning of each thing. That's finding the spark and liberate that spark. How do we liberate it? When we find its meaning, we liberate it and we put it back into its context of the whole. Back within this whole great light. Once we reach a critical mass of all those sparks, each one of us is given its quota of these are your sparks. For each soul has your sparks that are your portion in the world that you have to liberate, each one of us. So each one of us comes in with this quota of sparks, and we're led to certain places and certain events in our lives that we go through. And our job is to, with each thing, find, oh, there's a mitzvah I can do this, there's a mitzvah I can do that, or there's some way I can use this for a good, meaningful purpose in life. There's some way that I can come to a deeper understanding of life, of meaning, of my Creator, through this experience that I'm having, through this thing. Or it could be that it's not the thing itself. It could be that this event is trying me, it's testing me. It's bringing out deeper strengths of my soul that I didn't know that I had. That I have to go through this event in order to reach to this. It could even be in a way that you fall into something. Somebody messes up, they fail, and they're stuck in this goo. And then they say, I don't want to be here. This is the wrong place. I messed up. And they return. And when they return, they bring back the sparks that were stuck in this place. So it brings out that power in you, that power to return. So each event is some way, and each thing is some way of getting deeper. I hope everybody's printed out or has in view on them the printout that I made. It should be there on the page for you to download. There you can see it backwards if you like, but you could see it forwards if you print it out or have it on your screen. There's a PDF. And I've got some basic quotations here from several sources, and we'll read from them and discuss how these ideas are discussed in the maamar. And also there's a little chat box there so that you can ask questions. And Chai Cohen is over there in the office in New York. I'm in Los Angeles, but he'll be sending me the questions, and we'll have a break once in a while so that I can answer questions. So you get to answer questions. I really look forward to those questions. It makes it much more interesting for me, because otherwise I'm just like sitting here and talking to my MacBook Pro, which I do very often anyways. So what's the difference? It's better if I know there are people there. Let me know that you're there by sending in some questions, or just say hello. Okay, so now what we're going to do is discuss really how through the different ways in our mission in life that we release these sparks, find these meanings and things. So you've got this printout here. And first of all, a quote from a verse from Tehillim, from the Psalms. Pada v'shalom nafshi, mikravli, kivarabim hayu imadi. He liberated my soul in peace from the battle that came to me. Okay. Pada is to liberate. V'shalom, in shalom, in peace. Nafshi, my soul. Mikravli, a krav is a hand-to-hand battle. We're like wrestling match. When you're in direct contact, face to face. But I was liberated in peace from this battle. And this is King David speaking. King David is saying this in the Psalms, talking about the battle that he'd had to fight. Actually, they say this is talking about his battle with his own son, who made a rebellion against him, Absalom. Kivarabim hayu imadi, because of the many who were with me. So why was I released in peace, in shalom, in peace? Because barabim hayu imadi, the many who were with me. The rabbis say that in Talmud Rishami, they say that King David was saying that the reason he was able to win peacefully was because even the soldiers of his combatant, which was his son Absalom, were actually praying that King David should win. That's Kibarabim Hayimadi. But there's a deeper esoteric meaning, which maybe we'll get to as well. The main thing here is Rabbi Shneur Zalman of Liadi, when he was released, after his release, concerning his release, he wrote a letter to one of the other tzaddikim, another student of the Maggid, a colleague of his. And he wrote like this. This is the next quote there. He says, when I read in the book of Psalms, he liberated in peace my soul, that verse that we just read. before I began the verse after it, I left in peace, and it was from the God of peace. Yatsasi v'shalom me'Hashem shalom. So he's emphasizing here very much that it was in peace. It was v'shalom. So let's go back again. He's being released from an imprisonment that he understands is something that he's being prevented from spreading Hasidus, from spreading these teachings. That's the whole accusation. And it could be decided, whatever is decided in the heavenly court, that's what will be decided down here in the Tsarist court. And it's decided above that, yes, you can go and you can spread these teachings. So the whole accusation is against the spreading of Hasidus. And it's decided that, yes, you can go, but it's decided in the way of shalom. So there must be a very deep connection between this idea of shalom, and not just shalom. He says, b'shalom, in shalom. He mentions peace twice. I left in peace from the God of peace. Yatsasi v'shalom Hashem shalom. And we say in the verse from Tehillim, Pada b'shalom. B'shalom in Hebrew is beis shalom. Beis is the second letter of the Hebrew alphabet, so it means in two types of peace. There's two types of peace that I left into. So somehow Hasidus is deeply connected to these two types of peace, and affects a liberation in two ways of peace. So we're going to liberate ourselves and the entire world, all these divine sparks of this world, and with Hasidus will be released in peace, in a peaceful way. It's actually hinted to in the Zohar as well. We hinted in the Zohar as well when Eliyahu Hanavi, Elijah the prophet, tells Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai that with this Sefer, this book of the Zohar, that you're going to be writing, composing, the Jews will leave from their exile. It says by being nurtured from this book, from this teaching, the Jews will leave from their exile barachamim, which means with compassion. So that the inner Torah is there in a way so that when we leave our exile, it should be in a way of shalom, peaceful way. Rachamim, shalom. I just got an interesting question. Was the Baal Shem Tov Sephardic? That's actually a very interesting question. The Baal Shem Tov was born in Akup, which is in the Ukraine, well, present-day Romania. At the time when he was born, it was actually under Ottoman rule. It was from the Ottoman Empire. When he was about 2 years old, the Lithuanians conquered it back from there and went back and forth, whatever. So it could well be, and some say that his family was like many Jews who lived in that area, were Jews who had escaped earlier from Sfarad and come to that part of the world. But we don't know. At any rate, he did, Daven as the Chassidim did, he used the Nusach Sfarad based on the Siddur of the Arizal. Not exactly the same, but based on that Siddur. So many of the customs are Sephardic, from Sfarad, from Spain. Okay, going on. The next part here, Rabbi Dov Ber of Lubavitch, that's the son and heir, the oldest son and heir to Rabbi Shnei Zalman of Liadi. And in his Torah Chaim, where he published the Maimarim, the teachings of his father, but at much, much greater length and explanation. So Maimar B'Shabti B'Shalom Beisavi. And he writes over there, the purpose behind Jacob's journey to Haran was to rescue the divine sparks there. So Yaakov Avinu, Jacob is leaving Eretz Yisrael, and ostensibly it's because his brother's out to kill him. So his mother, Rivka, tells him, get out of here, go back to where I came from, to my father's house, and you'll get a wife there, and I'll send for you to come back when your brother calms down. But you better get out of here fast. So that's superficially the reason. But why did God make it in such a way that Yaakov should go there? To rescue the divine sparks there. And everything is the Ramban, Rabbi Nachman ben Moshe ben Nachman, sorry, explains that everything that happens to our forefathers, the reason we're learning about it, is because this is a siman labanim. It's a siman for something that's happening to us. They go through these things in their lives in order to empower us that we can do the same thing in ours. So Yaakov here, Jacob is going into his personal exile so that we, in our time of exile, can accomplish what we need to accomplish. So what do we need to accomplish? We need to rescue divine sparks. So he's going to Haran to rescue divine sparks there. And that will enable us to be able to rescue divine sparks. So that's the meaning of, and I will return to my father's house in peace. That's what, and Yaakov is on his way there, and he, you know the story, he fell asleep, he had a dream, and he saw a ladder going up to heaven with angels going up and down the ladder. And he said, wow, this is an awesome place. God is here, and this must be the house of God. And it turns out that's the place where the temple eventually was built. And so he makes a promise to God that when he comes back, he's going to make this an altar over here. He's going to worship God here. And one of the conditions he makes, he says, if God will provide me, he'll give me food to eat and clothes to wear, and I will return in peace to my father's house. V'shavti b'shalom, in peace. Again, beis shalom, two types of shalom. I will return to my father's house in peace. So this rescue of these sparks, he was saying not just I should return, but he wanted that he should be able to rescue these sparks, return them to their origin. That's my father's house. The sparks would return to their father's house. That should be in peace. So in peace is b'shalom, two sorts of peace. And now he explains there's peace that works its way from below upward, and peace that works its way from above downward. You've got grassroots peace and top-down peace. Two types of shalom. And we want to understand now, what are these two types of shalom that work from the bottom up and from the top down? To do that, let's go to the Rebbe's maamar, V'shavti b'shalom, which is based on that maamar of Rebbe Daber. And I'm not making a direct translation here. I'm paraphrasing. So the Rebbe says like this: these two directions of peace are two strategies of birur. Birur is when I talk about liberating those sparks. Birur, I can't find a translation for birur or borer. I wish I knew. If somebody comes up with one, please let me know. Some say purifying, but that doesn't really work. Birur is when you've got, say, a lot of grains of wheat, but there's little pebbles or grains of sand mixed in over there. So you're going in, and either you're picking out the good wheat and leaving behind the pebbles, or you're picking out the sand and leaving behind the grains of wheat. That's called birur. So it's a kind of purification, but it's this type of picking the right stuff out. And so either you're left with the good stuff, or you've taken the good stuff out, you've rescued it out. So our birur is we're going around and picking out the sparks from everything, finding the good in each thing. Some people think that their whole point in life is to find the bad about everything. No. That's not what you're here for. You're here to find the good, the meaningfulness of each thing, not what's wrong with it. It doesn't help to go to the heavenly court after 120 years and say, oh, I found everything that was wrong with God's world. No, that's not the point. The point is you're able to come back and I found the meaning of this, I found the meaning of that, I found something good about this, I used this for a good thing, used that for a good thing. In each thing I found something good, in each person I found something good, and in every experience in life I found something good. That's called finding these sparks. So that's birur. And there's two strategies of birur. of rescuing, liberating these sparks and finding their meaning. Each of these two strategies has its advantage. So right away, when you hear that, when you hear that there's two strategies and each one has an advantage that the other one doesn't have, so right away, your mind is thinking, oh, how can I find a third way that has both advantages, which is exactly what we're going to try to do. So the birur from below, that's the bottom-up way, means that you must invest yourself within the situation of that which you are liberating. Or in the Hebrew words are hislabshus belavushe hamisbara. I'll say that with the Israeli havara. Hitlabshut belavushe hatmitbarer. You have to invest yourself, dress up, so to speak, in the same clothes as that which you were trying to liberate. You have to come to its place and be within it. So, for example, you are trying to help somebody in a difficult situation. So you could sit back in your armchair and say, well, I see your situation's like this and like this, like this. Let me give you my advice. Do this, this, and everything will be okay. The person gets up, walks out of the room, and completely ignores your advice because there was no empathy there. I can't follow your advice. Okay, you try a little harder. You say, if I were you, or if you were my child, okay, so sounds some empathy. It's not really getting there. There's a story about, I heard this, the video of her saying this directly, a social worker, international social worker, her name is Monique Sternen. And she said when she came to New Zealand to help some Maori woman there, I'm not sure exactly what the situation, but they were in dire need of help for their survival. One of the Maori women said to her, if you're here to help me, I don't need your help, it's not going to help. But if your destiny, at least that's how she translated, if your destiny is tied to my destiny, then we can work together to fix the problem. So I believe that's why when the Rebbe would send somebody to come to a community and transform that community, bring out the Jewishness of that community, the idea was you're going there and you are there. You're part of that community. You're not going to for 2 years. You're going to be there. You're going to raise a family there. And you'll raise your funding from there. It'll be completely indigenous to it. So another example, if you're teaching somebody something, you have students, so you could teach these students from the outside. I'm giving my lecture, like the teacher said, I taught them. They didn't understand. That's not my problem. I taught them. You didn't teach anything. If they didn't understand, you didn't teach. Teach means they are learning. Okay, so there's a type of teaching where you're aloof from the whole thing, but real teaching means that you are hearing yourself from the mind of your student. You're understanding how your student understands you. And there's actually a halacha. If a student is forced to go into one of the cities of exile, cities of refuge, sorry. So, there's cities of refuge. If a person, God forbid, kills somebody by accident, so he can run to one of these cities of refuge and lives there until the high priest, the Kohen Gadol, dies, and then he's able to leave the city. So the halacha is that if somebody who's a student of Torah has to go to one of these cities, it says his teacher has to go into exile with him. Why? Because the Torah says that he has to go to this city. When you go to one of these cities of refuge, you're going to live there. You have to live there. And the rabbis say, if you send a student away without his teacher, he's not living. That's called life for him. He's a student of Torah. So that's not life. So his teacher has to be there. But what's very interesting, it doesn't say that his teacher has to go there to teach him. It says, the halacha says, that his teacher has to go into exile with him. Why not just say his teacher has to go and teach him there? No, his teacher has to go into exile with him. Because if his teacher goes and says, well, you're in exile, so I'm going to come here and teach you, he's not going to be able to teach him. The teacher has to be in exile with his student, otherwise he can't teach him. Wherever the student is, the teacher has to be there. That's called real teaching. So that's investing yourself within the place, the situation, the levushim of that which you are trying to rescue. And that's what happens with us when we go into, come into this world. We become very involved in the world. We can't just say, well, I'm here, I'm a godly soul, and I'm God's child, so I'll just pray to God, and green dollar bills will fall from the sky. No, we have to work within this world and be invested in this world. And if we're not don't invest ourselves within this world, we cannot transform it. I just saw a question that came in. I'm going to stop for just a second. Rabbi Shneur Zalman of Liadi said, create Israel around you before you go to Israel. With that said, wouldn't it make sense for the Chabad mezuzah to be installed as Sephardic rather than Ashkenazi installation? Does this installation have something to do with Jerusalem? Oh, no, that's too hard for me right now. I'm very sorry. And I think it's going to take us off topic as well. So maybe after we're finished, I can deal with it, or because all these will be online and I'll be able to respond to it then. Or maybe it does have to do with what we're saying, what I just said right now. In each place that Jews go to, we say, when you come to a country, the rabbis told us, you have to pray for the peace of that country. Yirmiyahu, a Navi, told us. The prophet told us. You have to pray for the peace of the country that you're in. And the rabbi said further that you go according to the customs of that country. And each country has its particular customs. If those customs are not against Torah, that's the way you do things. So in different countries, Jews eat different kinds of food and have different kinds of customs according to that country. In each country, we have different Jewish customs. And the reasons why the customs of the Jews in Ashkenaz are different from the customs of Jews in Italy, which are different from the customs of the Jews of Iraq, which are different from the customs of the Jews of Morocco, is because in each country has its particular type of birur. The way the sparks in one place are different than the sparks in another place. Say there are 70 shivim sarim, 70 angelic officers over the 70 nations of the world. And when you go in each, you don't know in each country which sar, angelic officer, you're under, but the sparks there are different, and they have to be rescued in a different way. So our customs in each country are according to how those sparks have to be elevated. In some places, they're elevated with gefilte fish, and in other countries, they're elevated with curried chicken, and in other countries, with couscous. So it depends on which country you're in. And in some countries, the mezuzah has to be this way, in some countries, the mezuzah that way. Okay? So that's called investing yourself. So now the Rebbe gives an example, but he gives an example not of the divine spark, but of your own neshama, your godly soul. In your own life, besides rescuing all these sparks, your principal mission in life is to liberate your own divine soul. So within your own life mission, I'm going to describe two ways of liberating the soul. So one way that it happens, one type of birur, of shalom, your divine soul describes what it sees and comprehends to the animal soul, that the animal soul can fathom. So you're an animal. I mean, I'm not insulting anybody, but we're animals that walk on two legs and upright. But we're animals, and but we have injected within us a godly soul. So we're very intelligent animals. We have this huge brain, and we're compared to other animals relative to our bodies, and we're able to, because of our mind, to say this is a type of animal that the mind is able to rule over the heart. It's able to override what the heart and the kishkas are saying. So it's a very noble animal, a human animal, but it's still basically a beast. And within it is injected a divine soul. Like it says, that God blew into the nostrils of Adam this breath of life, which is God breathing inside us. God's breathing inside us. And so this breathing of God inside us is, in a way, it's imprisoned. It's locked in there. I don't want to be in a beast. I don't want to be, every time I think, I have to think using this 2.5 pounds of meat up in my skull. I used to think up there, I used to see godliness, and here I'm stuck with using this brain. I can't take it. Here, everything I need to do, I have to move within time and space and such constraints. It's so hard. It's so difficult. So it feels imprisoned. Most of the godly soul never really descends into the body. And that aspect of the godly soul that stays above still sees godliness. And so even the divine soul, this neshama, this breath of God within us, feels that I know this world is not really what it appears to be. I know that there's meaning here. I know this is all wrong. I know that there's only one God and He is good. I know that it's obvious to me. But this animal that I'm in just doesn't get it. It doesn't get it. Okay, so how do I get out of this situation? Well, it's not just a matter of getting out of the situation, because, like with Monique Sternen, the destiny of this divine soul is tied up with the destiny of this beast that it's within. The only way it can be liberated is by somehow elevating this animal, this human animal. So one strategy is a bottom-up strategy. The godly soul gets into conversation, so to speak, with the animal within us, the human animal, and starts describing to it what it sees, which could be very frustrating. You know, you can imagine that, for example, you're in an art gallery with somebody who has no appreciation of art, and you look at a beautiful Rembrandt. Oh, that's so beautiful, so magnificent. And you look at your friend standing next to you and says, I don't know what you're talking about. All looks like somebody's grandmother, that's all. No, it's not. Look at it. There's beauty there. Look at the hands. The way the hands are painted, so beautiful. Yeah, I see hands, you know, what's the big deal? So you're seeing beauty. This person sees hands. What's going on? You can hear beautiful music. The other person says, shut that noise off. What noise? Is beautiful music. I don't hear any beauty. I hear noise. Okay, now that's the frustration to some degree, but much, much more than that. This godly soul trying to tell the animal within you, wow, there's godliness. There's only one God. Everything is godliness. Everything is just another expression of God. Everything is another. And it's saying, listen, I just want to go eat. You know, when do we get some fun? Yeah? What's going on here? Well, now we're going to praise and glorify and beseech this one God. Okay, the animal soul is good. Go ahead. I got other things to do. Tell me when we're ready for breakfast. So there has to be what we call this beinonus, a type of contemplation and meditation, where you think about what is God, what is the world, how does God create the world, what is our purpose and meaning of life, but you think about it in terms that the human brain can understand, can fathom, get some inkling of it. Describe it in that way. So that way you're going much, much further. Finally, the animal says, oh yeah, I see I'm starting to get it. And it starts becoming a little more elevated. Okay. Yeah, okay, that's interesting. That's deep. Okay. Oh, wow. He's telling him about this creator of the universe. He's a tremendous programmer. Look what he did. Look what he achieved. Wow, would you like to have a meeting with him? And the animal says, yeah, sure, a meeting. I'd love to meet the creator of the universe. Can you arrange a meeting? Yeah, sure. I talk to him 3 times a day. You want to come along? Fantastic. Yeah, I'll come along. What do I say? What do I say? Well, you can ask him anything you want. Whoa, can I ask for any? Yeah, that's what the idea. He wants you to ask for anything. Whoa. So the animal gets all excited about this. That's one way. That's the bottom up. So this goes to the point. I'm on the second page here of my notes, not going very fast over here. So that the animal soul also attains a sense of love and awe of God. And this is the only way to effect real change, by coming to the place of that which you want to change. You have to come down to the place of this human mind, the human brain, and talk in those terms. You can't just say, oh yeah, I feel godliness. Oh, my soul feels godliness. That's when your soul feeling godliness doesn't help anybody. Your soul felt godliness much, much more before it came here. So it's not going to change anything. Your soul is going to feel godliness, and then afterwards, your animal is going to eat breakfast like nothing happened, okay? Like an animal. But this way, after you're finished, you sit down to eat. And the animal says, you know what, before I have these scrambled eggs, I have to say a blessing on it. And I should eat this properly, like a human being eats, not like an animal eats, and I'm going to eat it in order that I can learn Torah and do mitzvahs. And it goes out to business. It's, I have to do this with some meaning. I have to find meaning in everything that I'm doing, because you transformed this animal. You changed something of it. Okay, so that sounds fantastic. That sounds like the best way. The bottom-up strategy sounds like the best strategy. But the Rebbe says, no, there's a disadvantage to this kind of birah. Because there's only so far you can lift things up from within. Only as far as the limitations you're dealing with. So in the example of the animal soul, it remains an animal. And it's still essentially opposed to godliness. So its more sublime aspects, its mental, higher emotional faculties, are under the influence of the divine soul. The animal soul itself remains essentially an animal. So you took it out of its territory, into the territory of the divine soul, and convinced it of something that it's convinced of, but not really convinced. And the example is given of Esau, Yaakov's brother, who to a degree was able to understand these things. And it says his head is buried, is sitting in the cave, the Maras Machpelah, the cave of Machpelah, in the bosom of Yitzchak, Isaac, his father, and his body is buried out in the field. This dichotomy. So the animal is left with a dichotomy. My head understands. I understand what the godly soul is telling me about, but I still feel like an animal. And what I feel is really what runs things. And basically, even when the animal has approved of this and said yes, but at the end of the day, it's because the animal says, because I approved of it, because I agreed to it. And I'm still an animal. So it would be like you explain to this person in the art gallery, you explain to him what beauty is, but he himself is not really someone who appreciates beauty yet. That didn't happen. So you need a strategy, another kind of strategy. To do that, you need a strategy that's going to blow the animal away. Just blast it out of its place. So this is the other type of strategy. This is called working from top down. Since working from the top down doesn't have that disadvantage. You introduce an element so far beyond that which you want to liberate that it spontaneously loses all sense of self, is absorbed entirely within the divine. So now let's go back to our instance that we were talking about of the divine soul and the animal soul. So we're liberating the divine soul. We got to do something with this animal that it's within, because they're tied together. So this is what occurs when the divine soul experiences love and ecstasy that transcends all boundaries of conscious reason. So this is doing what I said not to do, but it's going to work in a certain way. You allow the godly soul to meditate upon things that the animal soul has no clue what it's thinking of. But the godly soul gets it, and the godly soul gets so excited about this. We're talking about infinite light, and you're talking about oneness with God, and wow, the animal saw something beyond time, beyond space, all of these things, and the animal has no clue of any of this. But the godly soul gets it, and the godly soul has this ecstasy that just totally obliterates the animal soul. Animal soul has no space to move over here. It becomes totally lost and absorbed within the experience, like it's not there. So it's lifted up into an entirely different realm. The problem is, as soon as all this is over, the animal soul is totally untransformed. At the time, it's totally batal, we say, nullified, absorbed, but it's not transformed. So ultimately, the goal is to have both forms of birur. You need a bottom up and top down together. And within each one of them, you have to have the advantage of the other. Then the change is both real, because of the bottom up one is real, and it's all consuming. It takes over the entire person. So we want to find one that has both. Okay, and that's with the soul. And we want to find something that's both with the nitzutzis, with the sparks of godliness that are within the world. How are we going to liberate both? I don't see a lot of questions coming in. We'll go on. A lot of people listening, but I don't see a lot of questions. So there must be a third level. To get to the third level, we're going to go into other higher levels. And we're going to talk about 2 levels of the higher, of the top-down type of birur. And this is from the Zohar, this passage. It says, there are 2 who told God to arise. So arise, we're understanding as making those divine sparks arise from the place, rescuing them. They're Moshe and David, Moses and David. Moses said, Kuma Hashem v'yafutzu yavecha v'yanusa mesanacha mipanacha. Arise, God, and your enemies shall scatter. Those who hate you shall flee from before you. And I saw a question just came in. I'll look at it soon. And King David said, Kuma Hashem l'menuchasecha. Arise, God, to your resting place. Ata v'arnu zecha, you and the ark of your strength. Okay, what's the difference between the 2? So there's a difference. We're both telling God to arise. And Moshe is talking about the Aron of Kadesh, the ark that held the tablets that's moving with them. He says that when he would say these lines, that would be the time that the ark would move, and all the Jewish encampment in the midbar, in the wilderness, would move on to the next encampment. And King David's also talking about this ark. The difference is that with Moshe, there are enemies. The enemies are scattered, but they're enemies, even though they're scattered. By King David, he says, arise, God, to your resting place. Menucha sech, it's menucha, there's rest over here. So it's b'shalom, it's peaceful. So it comes out that there, well, let me go into some of the background. This ark is traveling through the midbar, through its 48 encampments. And just like when we said Yaakov, Jacob, when he went to Haran, he was going there to rescue the sparks from there. So according to the Zohar, this midbar, this wilderness, it's called Eretz Ha'amim in the Torah, the land of nations. And it's sort of like a microcosm of the entire world. So the Sinai Peninsula, or wherever they were, is a microcosm, and it has one place, one encampment for each of the places that we're going to go in our exile. And in each place, there are divine sparks there. So that's why they had to go to this encampment, that encampment, each of these different encampments. When they'd come to a certain encampment, the Aaron would come there, and there would be this intense light of the sanctity of the holiness of this Aaron, this godliness of the Aaron, this intense light. And that intense light would blast away anything that was holding back the divine sparks there. And that's what the enemies would scatter. Whatever was holding back the divine sparks would just scatter, be blasted away by this intense light. And the divine sparks would be sucked in. So this is a very top-down approach, this bringing this intense light to each place of the Aaron. But there's a problem with it. It's not in a way of peace. Okay, it's peaceful in that there's no battle over here. So you're not going direct conflict. Really, when the divine soul is talking with the animal soul, that's a type of battle. I have to convince them. It's a debate type of battle, convincing type of battle. So this is not that type of battle. Because being this intense light, and the divine sparks are amazing. But the problem is they remain enemies. They're scattered, but they're still your enemies. So that's not real peace. You don't have peace there. King David is saying that no, it's going to be your resting place, because King David made the designs for the temple that his son Shlomo HaMelech, King Solomon, built. Shlomo HaMelech, he's called Shlomo HaMelech because in his days there was shalom, there was peace. What happened in the times of King David, of Shlomo HaMelech? The Aaron had a certain place in the temple that Shlomo HaMelech built. Don't worry, I'm going to get to that question. So, where Shlomo HaMelech built, and this temple, especially the Aaron, acted not as so much as intense light, but a kind of a magnet. It was such an intense light that it worked as a magnet, and throughout the world, it was felt throughout the world. Something's happening there in the land of Israel, and divine sparks were just drawn there. And so kings and queens sent their gold and silver. And Malchus Shva, the queen of Sheba, came all the way from Ethiopia, and to hear the wisdom of Shlomo HaMelech. They were drawn there because each thing has a divine spark, and the divine spark within them was being drawn towards godliness. Look at these two questions here. Before it's 9 o'clock. Mourner's prayer is said before Rosh Hashanah for Jews that have passed that year, so they don't suffer pain anymore. Why do we want the Rebbe to suffer with pawns? With pawns forever. And 2, it is said that Joseph's soul is above the heavens. Does that mean it is beyond the 10 sfirot, or does not contain them? So I think the questions are not really, I don't see at least directly connected to this, so I can't deal with them now. We're at 9 o'clock. I want Chai to tell me whether I should go on or whether I should stop here. Chai, do you want to let me know? Should I go on? Let me type to him. Maybe he's not hearing me. Maybe he left too, because it's 9 o'clock. Yes, he's saying yes. Okay, I'll go on, and I'd like to know, maybe he'll let me know how long I'm going to go on, but we'll go on for now, whoever is still listening. Let's go on. The next passage we're reading is from the Eitz Chaim. The Eitz Chaim was written by Rabbi Chaim Vital. Another question comes in, so I'll get to that in a minute. Yeah, okay, this looks interesting. Rabbi Chaim Vital was a student of the Arizal, the prime student, his protege. So he wrote Eitz Chaim as a compendium of everything that he was taught by his teacher, the Arizal. We have different versions of the Eitz Chaim, so it gets very confusing what exactly wrote, and parts of it were added by other colleagues of Rabbi Chaim Vital and by his own son. But it's a basic reference book, the most basic reference book for the Kabbalah of the Arizal. So one of the most studied chapters is Shar Gate 36, which is the gate of the diminishing moon, or Shar Miyat HaYareach. When the sun and the moon were first created, they're called Ha'Ma'oros HaGedolim, the great luminaries. because both of them were of equal size. And then later they're referred to, immediately afterwards, they're referred to as the great luminary to illuminate the day, and the smaller luminary to illuminate the night. So the Medrash tells us that what happened, and the Zohar also says, that when they came into being, they saw there's two great luminaries. So the moon says, what's going on over here? You can't have two kings with one crown. And God says to the moon, yeah, you made a very good point. So you're going to have to diminish yourself. And the moon says, just a minute, you agreed with my argument. So why am I being punished for it? And it goes through how the God tries to appease the moon. I'm sorry, but okay, I'll give you stars at night, let you shine a little bit during the day. And finally, God says, you know what, on every new moon, at the beginning of each month, I'm going to ask the Jewish people that they bring a sacrifice to atone for me for having diminished the size of the moon. This is a very strange medrash, very strange story. And in its time, he gives an explanation, and later the explanation has been more expanded and built upon. What's going on here is that in our world, there is mashpia umakabel, the one who gives and the one who receives. Everything is divided that way. There's always a giver and a receiver. In general, these are the two aspects of the world that are the masculine and the feminine. And so our world works at this like protocol, hierarchy type of thing, at least from the way that we see things. But as God himself, the creator himself, sees his world, he doesn't see any top down. He sees that he's equally everywhere. So that's what it means that as he initially created it, both the sun and the moon were both great luminaries. Meaning, in God's mind, both mashpia makabel, the one that gives and the one that receives, are both just as great. It's not one is higher and one is lower. Masculine and feminine are both just the same. They both have one crown to them. But the way things play out in our world is that there's this top-down thing where the one who's receiving always gets the short end of the stick and ends up being oppressed by the one that's giving to him. So what Torah is about is liberating that situation, bringing the world to be in actuality the way that God, the Creator, envisions it, so that we see the makabel, the receiver, as being just as great as mashpia in every aspect. So for example, right now we have a protocol where there is spiritual and physical, and we just understand intuitively that spiritual is higher than physical. We see that there's a soul, and there's a body, and we understand intuitively that, of course, the soul is higher than the body. And it goes on and on with things. There's a teacher and a student. There's the rich person who gives to the poor person. The giver and receiver over and over again. And all becomes masculine and feminine. In Sfirot, it's called Zah, which is Zer Anpin, the higher 9 spheres, and Malchus, the lower of the spheres, the masculine and feminine aspects. So that's represented by the sun and the moon. And the moon has to become diminished, but really the whole goal is so that it should become, that we, through our work, should achieve an equality. Not to erase, not to obliterate that there's giver and receiver, masculine, feminine. Obliterating those lines would obliterate the world, and the point isn't to obliterate the world. There still will be spiritual and physical, soul and body, masculine, feminine, giver, receiver, all of that. But our perception of it totally changes, so that we see that just as there's an advantage of the spiritual over the physical has a very great advantage over the spiritual. Just as the soul has an advantage over the body has a very great advantage over the soul. And the same with masculine and feminine. man and woman, giver, receiver, everything. And that gives us an entirely different world, where all of these binary couplets can be inversed either way. The world then becomes totally transparent, and we see the oneness of its creator. So that's what's happening. So then the Eitz Chaim goes through how this situation of the Miyat Yerech, the diminishing of the moon, actually got worse from the times of Adam all the way until the times of Abraham, and then started turning around. And from the times of Abraham, it started bettering itself, and it goes up through 7 levels. At King Solomon, Shlomo Melech was 15 generations after Abraham. So on the 15th day of the month, you have a full moon. So the moon was full. So, you solved the whole problem. The moon is full, and there's peace in its time, and the temple is built. So Eitz Chaim says, no. In the times of King Solomon, it only reached level number 6. It didn't yet reach level number 7. I'm going to read this question that came in a while ago. I'm sorry I waited 5-6 minutes. Adam ate of the tree of knowledge, and his soul shattered and entered the world. Mankind raises these sparks, brings the universe closer to the divine. Adam's choice is part of the divine plan to raise the universe. Okay, it's not Adam's soul that shattered, it's the whole world that shattered. But to begin with, when Adam came into the world, it was already a shattered world. And Adam was given a choice. As in your question, you're saying it's a choice. Adam was given a choice. So he could have elevated the world by simply staying there, not eating of that fruit, and elevating all the sparks, and all the sparks would have just come to their place spontaneously without his having to work directly and invest himself within them, without that investment type of birur. But he when he chose to eat from that fruit, he threw himself into a situation where there has to be a birur from below up as well. Was that part of the divine plan? Well, on the one hand, it's Adam's choice. On the other hand, God knew what he would choose because God knows the future. Doesn't mean that God made him do it. God knows the future. So the divine plan is that it should come from the bottom up. There should be 2 types of peace, both of them. And that's why even before Adam entered the world, the shattering had already happened. And the moon had already been diminished. There's another question here. Did the physical world exist before Adam ate of the tree of knowledge? Yes, it was a physical world, but it was an entirely different kind of physical world. There's a type of physical world, something like the physical world that we'll experience after Techiyas Amesim, the resurrection of the dead. The physical world where our bodies will be bodies that you can traverse from one world, from a physical world to a spiritual world and back again. Different type. It's still physical. It still has boundaries, but it's a type of physical that's very refined. And was it not Chava that made that choice? Yes, Chava, it was Adam's wife, Chava, Eve, that made the choice first initially, but then it was Adam. But Rabbi Yitzhak Luria explains that it really started off with Adam. But that's a whole other story. Okay. Let's read this passage from the Eitz Chaim. The moon, representing the sphere of Malchut, has 7 degrees of elevation. In the times of King Solomon, Shalom HaMelech, it achieved the 6th. In the times of Mashiach, it will achieve the 7th. So let's go and what's at the 6th degree? So at the 6th degree, the female is face to face with her male partner, Zah. So Malchus and Zah are, when they make these charts of the 10 spheres, and always Malchus is there at the bottom. Well, it's not really true. Malchus is mobile. Malchus, the bottom sphere, can be totally detached, and down there, being the Em Kol Chai, the mother of all life, she's in the lower worlds, invested in the lower worlds, giving them life. She can come back, and she's attached, and she's attached, and she's receiving from above. Or she can be elevating, coming up, and she can see in the to the point she's in the, it says bechek, in the bosom, at the chest level of the other spheres. Or she can be higher than that, she can be face to face. So this is talking the 6th level where she's face to face. So that's fine, she's face to face, he's there. But the problem is, the crown is still his crown. They're face to face, but the crown is still his crown, and she's receiving from his crown. The seventh degree is two kings with a single crown, as God originally envisions everything. That seventh level is not achieved until you get to the times of the Mashiach. There was a question came in. If the bottom-up approach is really a battle, why do we call it peace? Okay, so that's what we're, going back there, that's what we were describing at the beginning, that the bottom-up approach is really a battle, and the top-down approach is more in a way of peace, but each one has its advantage and disadvantage. So what we need to do is do the bottom-up approach in a way of peace, and the top-down approach in a way that affects real change. And that's where we're struggling to understand is how is the top-down, bottom-up approach going to be in a way of peace? And we're going to explain, I don't know, I hope we get there, how the bottom-up approach also can be in a way of peace. Why it can be that way. Okay, but let's get back to this. We want to get to see the difference between the sixth degree and the seventh degree. So one way we said one of the differences is that even though they're face to face, but the crown is still his crown, and she's still receiving from him. So another difference is that at the sixth degree, the light reaches only as far down as the ninth sphere, Yesod of Malchut. So, okay, you have the 10 Sfirot, and number 9 is Yesod. I needed a chart over here, I'm sorry I don't have. And then below that comes Malchut. Within Malchut, you have itself, within Malchut, the lowest sphere, you also have 10 Sfirot. Number 9 is Yesod Sheba Malchut. And then you have Malchut Sheba Malchut. Okay. Yesod Sheba Malchut is how Malchut, the feminine aspect, is receiving from above. Malchut Sheba Malchut is how she is giving to below. So one is like she's a wife, and the other one is like how she's a mother. It's one way of understanding it. So in the times of Shlomo Melech, the Gili, or the light, reached only down to Yesod of Malchut, which is like the masculine aspect within Malchut, and how she's absorbed. So Malchut of Malchut is also receiving this light, but it's not on her own level. It's only as she is absorbed within that masculine aspect of Yesod. So how the feminine is absorbed within the masculine of the feminine, put it that way. In the time to come, the light will be revealed all the way to Malchut of Malchut as she is in her place. Not as she's absorbed within the masculine, but as she is in her place. So it's like the light is coming here. We see the advantage of this down here, and this is where we want to be. This light is saying, that's where I want to be, down in that place, as Malchut is in her place. It's Malchut Sheba Malchut. Okay, so this is really something very radical that's being stated over here. There are many Maimarim of the Alter Rebbe in Shir Hashim, in the Song of Songs, that describe this, and they're very radical Maimarim. And the Rebbe Rishab wrote Maimarim also built on this. He wrote them during the time of the Russian Revolution, and they're very, very revolutionary Maimarim. But the Rebbe brings it all the way over here in something very radical. So even though we're 16 minutes over time, I got to get to this. So this is very radical. So this is from a Maamar Pada B'Shalom 5726, which is, the Rebbe basically said this in 1965. But it wasn't published. It was edited and published in 1991. 91, the winter of 91, almost 92, for your test kissuv of that year. So it's one of the last Maimarim that the Rebbe edited for publication. So the Rebbe is talking about this passage in the Eitz Chaim. And he says the difference between these two degrees of elevation, the sixth and the seventh, 2 degrees of elevation from Malchut, also affects the bearer of the divine sparks that fell below. So the lower that you go, the lower that the light reaches to Malchut, right? So Malchut is getting greater and greater light. That's the way it's described in Eitz Chaim. So Eitz Chaim is not talking about, but how does that affect Malchut doing her job of this bearer? Malchut is receiving light as it's coming to her only as she's absorbed within her masculine aspect, or Malchut is getting light coming to her place as she is in her place. That will affect how she's going to liberate and rescue the sparks that fell below. So in what way does it affect the way? So we're here. In each one of us, we have the Shekhinah, that we have like some aspect of this Malchut, of this Shekhinah, and we're going about elevating the sparks. There's one way that we can do it, and that's really the type of mission that we should be doing in the times of King Solomon in the temple, or the way that we should be doing it now, in a way that brings the times of Mashiach. So the Rebbe says like this: see, Malchut of Malchut, this lowest, the bottom place where this light is reaching to, is no longer how Malchut receives from above. Rather, it is the divine force of Malchut that gives life and existence to each thing. It's the Koach HaPol Shebenifol, the active force within each artifact. So what I was talking about at the beginning of the class, within each thing, there's a divine force that, the whole point of this divine force is that this artifact, this thing should be existing. This MacBook Pro here, or this paper, or this person, or whatever, should be existing. Malchut Sheba Malchut is that which is giving that existence. So it's not some divine revelation for the sake of divine revelation, it's for the sake of the existence of something. That thing should be and be alive as whatever it is. The frog should be a frog, the stone should be a stone, the sky should be a sky, whatever it should be. That's Malchut Sheba Malchut that we're getting to, we're working towards now. As opposed to in the times of King Solomon, we didn't reach all the way down there. Therefore, in the times of King Solomon, Shlomo Melech, when the light opened into Malchut only as far as she related to that which is above her, the same occurred with those divine sparks. Only those sparks that were capable of sensing divine light were pulled in towards it. So the Queen of Sheba, Malchut Sheva, she felt, she was capable, she had the mind, the sensitivity, that she could feel, oh, there's something divine happening. So she was pulled in. And other kings and other people who felt, the Chachma, there's wisdom happening, they were pulled in. But those sparks that were so lost, they were not pulled in. They stayed in their place. But in the time to come, so we have like sparks that are invested in the permissible things of this world. And then we have sparks that fell so deep that they're invested in things, they're so locked inside these things that these things are not permissible because we don't have the capacity to liberate them. No matter what we do with them, we cannot liberate them. The only way we can liberate them is by resisting them, restraining ourselves from them. So King Solomon, Shlomo Melech, was not able to liberate those sparks because they don't have any sensitivity to godliness. They're so lost. But in the time to come, when the light will open up all the way to that level of Malchut as she descends into the created worlds, so that level of Malchut, that is the active force behind all of its artifacts, then even those divine sparks that became so distant that of their own they're incapable of sensing a divine light. And even those sparks that have descended so far that they themselves have become like the evil that they sustain, even those will rise and be absorbed within holiness. That means coming to Malchut as it is in her place. So you don't need any sensitivity. Even that which is no sensitivity, that's going to be pulled out and it will become sensitive and the sparks will come. So what will happen to evil in the world? Evil will disappear because the spark that's there will be drawn out of it, and the evil itself is just a bunch of noise, and it's gone. And for those things that everything else will be totally elevated because the divine spark will be elevated. We see next. Yet further, even the physicality itself, not just the divine spark that sustains it, the physicality of this artifact. So the divine spark is the meaning of the thing. So not just the meaning of the thing, but the thing that carries that meaning. Matter, things that we said, well, it's just an artifact. Yeah, but that itself will be elevated, will remain an artifact, and itself will be elevated. The physicality of things will come into the most ultimate unity with the divine. So he's saying here that the body, the rock, the physicality of this world will be experienced as divine. Not only it will experience the divine, but we'll experience physicality as divine. We'll experience spiritual as being divine, but even physicality is being divine, and it will have its advantage over spirituality. So when we say that the physicality of each thing will achieve this ultimate oneness, it's not just because the divine force within it. I made up a word over here because there is no word in English. The force that isifies it from the void. Otherwise, I would have that brings it into existence. So isifies it, makes it be. So it's not just because the force that isifies it from the void will become apparent through it. No, it's not just the thing now becomes transparent and through it we see this divine force. We mean that the force's physical artifact itself, as it is a thing of itself, that too will be in an ultimate state of oneness. So not just that you'll look through the world and you'll see through the world and you'll see the divine through the world. You see the world as being divine. You'll also see the divine within it. But the physicality of the world will also be perceived as being divine. And you'll see that with your physical eyes and your physical mind. Because physicality won't be as we know physicality today, but will be physical. It'll be measurable and observable in the same way as now. The reason behind all this is, how is it possible that godliness could be at such a level of even the physicality, because there's physicality there? The Rebbe says, we're not speaking about divine light anymore. We're speaking about God himself. We're speaking of the very essence core of the infinite light. Not the infinite light, but the essence core. Not the light, not the luminance, but the luminary. And there is no existence outside of him. On the contrary, as Maimonides, the Rambam writes, the reality of his existence, blessed be he, is the existence of all that exists. And mitziuso, is the mitzius of every nimtza. Everything that exists is really just his existence. So that's what we will see. So if you're talking about divine light, you're always going to be stuck with light. You're always going to be stuck with the light is coming from somewhere and you are receiving it. But when you're talking about God himself, it's not a matter of coming from somewhere and you're receiving it. God is everywhere. He's within each thing, not as coming from above. He's within each thing as that thing is in its place. And we don't mean as it is a total mess and making a mess of the world in its place now. I mean, its true meaning, what it really is in that place. There we will see God. Okay, I think that's totally radical and amazing. There's a lot to talk about it. But 6:25, I'm just going to look over some of the questions that came in. I'm not going to read all of them. Let's see if there's something. Okay. Does one raise sparks? This is an interesting question. I'm sorry, there are a lot of interesting questions here, but I'm going to pick and choose here. Does one raise sparks through prayer or action? So in order to raise sparks through action, you need prayer first. And the reason for that is through prayer, you lift up your own human animal. That's the whole point of prayer, is to lift up the animal within you. And when you go about life the rest of the day, if your animal's still stuck in the mud, it's not going to lift up anything. So you start off the day with prayer, lifting it up, and then you go on to learning Torah, to lift it up further. And then when you go out into the world, you can lift up those sparks. Otherwise, you're not going to lift up the sparks. They're going to pull you down. Okay, question number 7. Lost sparks. Is that a reference to Techiyas HaMesim, the resurrection of the dead? The resurrection of the dead is of souls. But there is resurrection of the dead, also of these lost sparks. And that's also a type of resurrection, because they're totally lost. They're talking about like things that are not kosher, that are even evil in the world, and so on. Those are lost sparks. There's something there, but the spark is lost. And we can't directly elevate them. We can only elevate them by refraining from them, or by repentance, or waiting for the times of Mashiach. Yeah, they're locked up until either a stronger spark or the forces around it release it or pull it. Yeah, so that's a type of Techiyas HaMesim that we affect. How does one discern situations when sparks cannot be elevated? Very simple. If it's forbidden to you, you can't elevate it. You stay away. How do you know? In general, you have to stay a little bit above the world. When do you know that a spark is waiting for you to elevate it? Generally, the sign is that if it's something that you need in order to live, or to do whatever it is that you do for your business, or wherever your talents lie and so on, this is something that you need, then you know that that's a spark that's waiting for you to elevate it. Or you're thrown into a certain situation. Whatever situation you're thrown into, it's because there's a spark there waiting for you to elevate. Otherwise, you wouldn't be in that situation. There's nothing that happens in your life that's in vain, that's for nothing. Each thing that happens in your life is a spark that's been waiting for you since the 6 days of creation. And you're now in this situation where you have a choice to either liberate this spark now, or you'll have to come back to it at a later time. So to take care of it right now. And you do that by starting off your day with meditation and prayer and Torah, and going out into the world and doing it the way it's supposed to be done according to Torah. And the main thing, when you learn things like this and you understand it, you think, wow, this times of Mashiach we're talking about, this is totally amazing. I want to be there now. So we should be there now. Thank you, everybody, for coming and learning with us. You'll be able to watch the video again. We're able to continue discussion in the chat box, and I'll answer other questions that come up there if I can as we go on. Good Yom Tov. Have a wonderful Shabbos and a very happy Hanukkah. We should all meet together in Jerusalem tonight. See you there.